Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Horror 101. This one is Outlast Analysis, which is me going over the game Outlast. And as I've said about this in other videos, the previous videos in this series, I am using, or I wrote all of that I'm going to be going over for these last two videos. I'm going off of posts I've written about this. Just like with the Art of the Jump Scare, that one was originally a post as well. And I used PewDiePie's playthrough because, as I've said in other videos, I like watching other people play games more than playing them myself anymore. So I can kind of analyze. I'm more interested in just experiencing the story rather than playing the game. And also, when it comes to like the horror games, I like to analyze them for what works and what doesn't work. And it's easier to do that when I'm just watching somebody like PewDiePie play. And I do find him amusing. Markiplier is also kind of fun. But I like kind of upbeat, silly people, as long as they're not obnoxiously so. But of course, what one person finds obnoxious, another person won't, and I find PewDiePie and Markiplier to be amusing. So, let's get into this analysis of the game Outlast, and you can kind of follow along by watching PewDiePie's playthrough, and I'm just going to kind of go through it. You can put this up and turn the volume down on that, and then just watch it and listen to me talk about it while I go through, but it won't sync up entirely, obviously. You can just kind of pause this video when I'm starting to get ahead of what's going on in the playthrough if you want. You can just listen to this, because I'll more or less explain what was going on while I'm playing, or while it was playing. So, the game starts off with kind of a synopsis of what's happening, and I really don't think that that's appropriate. I think, really, if they need to, start the game off with a little synopsis of what's leading up to the start of the game, it should be on the packaging. Put that on the packaging along with the warning about, how it could affect the health of some people if they're vulnerable to, like, flashing lights and being scared and whatnot. And if it's a download, put it, in the information for the download. Or if you're not going to do that, just put it in the game. But not like, just a file sitting next to the guy that you read before you start playing. There was just something about that because that's what happens in the game. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this properly when you may not have seen this game or played it. So right at the beginning of the game, it starts with the character driving up towards this old asylum where some weird things have been going on, and somebody has called him and given him some information that he's a reporter. The main character's a reporter. And, he's given him information to come and investigate this thing. And they give it to you in the form of a file that you read. I mean, you could do that with audio. Just like an internal dialogue as you're driving up this street, or this dirt road towards the asylum. Just stopping everything all of a sudden just to read something right at the beginning of the game. I don't know, that just throws me. I don't think that's very good. But then I'm not a fan of files and stuff anyway. But I'll get to that later in games. So, that part of the intro really threw me. I didn't care for that at all. Because, it's just kind of a buzzkill right there at the beginning. And going back to some of the stuff I've said in previous videos, the character in the game does not know he's in a horror survival game. He doesn't know that until he starts getting, until shit starts happening. So, starting with weird information right from the get-go and making it seem obvious that it's a horror survival game and stuff, I'm not a fan of that. You know, you don't have to ram it down everybody's throat right at the beginning with text, too. I mean, it's text. I don't get that. It's a game. You had the money to hire people to do voiceover acting through the game. You couldn't spend just a little bit of extra money and have somebody, you know, I think the main character has a voice actor. I'm not sure. If not, you know, have it in the form of a phone call that he's recorded and listens to as he's driving up or something. I mean, stopping right in the middle of the intro to do text, I don't get that. But they do redeem themselves with the rest of the intro, which is absolutely gorgeous. It is very creepy. And I wanted to go into why it's creepy. Okay? So, you know, what makes a setting creepy? I've talked about this some in other things, but that was more the psychology of it. And, okay, let's go into what's creepy about this setting. Okay, and again, if you haven't played, the setting is it's like up and on a mountain, and you're away from civilization. That's always going to be a good creepy scenario. It creates a loneliness aspect. You're driving up a dirt road, bare trees, it's winter or fall, and you're heading towards this huge insane asylum. So, really nice creepy setup here. Everything looks nice and creepy. It's a really good setting, okay? And part of that, okay, is that horror games are often set in the fall and winter because of the bare trees and the washed out colors, late fall and early spring. Winter, you know, it's the bare trees look scarier than friendly green trees. And things in wintertime tend to have washed out colors to them, especially as it becomes later in the evening. You know, there's not as much color around. Everything is just kind of bare and barren. You know, it's not scary in and of itself, but it is bleak and lonely looking, which are companion emotions to fear. Okay? So you're driving up this dark, lonely road surrounded by bare trees, crackly bushes. It creates a feeling of isolation. You know, it's a dirt road. That means you're away from civilization. You know, you're going up a mountain. It's hard to get help up a mountain. Okay? You know, being off of a paved road means you're well off the beaten path, usually. You know? And right at the beginning, all you see is the dirt road, the trees, the scrub. You know, and because of that, you already feel alone and vulnerable. Because everything about the setting says we are going away from people and potential help. And there does seem to be something about going up or down that helps that. Flat people, you know, I don't mean like every hill is creepy or anything. It's just when you're going well up into a mountain situation or way down in an underground situation, you're removing yourself from help, which is a good place to put characters in for horror. Okay, you know, consider intro scenes with movies like The Shining, The Evil Dead, and Alien even. You know, it's a lot of the best horror movies and games can run a mile past other people just by taking the time to establish how isolated and alone the character or characters are. Okay? So, I mean, you can actually separate the best horror fiction settings into two things. Either they're very isolated or very personal. Okay, something like The Shining works off of isolation, The Exorcist works off of being personal. Psycho works off of isolation, Halloween works off of being personal. Okay, Texas Chainsaw Massacre works off of isolation, Nightmare on Elm Street works off being personal. Night of the Living Dead, isolation, Dawn of the Dead is more personal. And 28 Days Later actually kind of uses both. In fact, really any zombie movie that happens in a city kind of uses both. Because it's a personal setting, a place we normally would feel safe, but transformed into a place of isolation. Which is one of the reasons why city settings that have become dystopian landscapes is scary. So, watching the intro still, there's this building ahead. It's huge. High walls with barbed wire on them. It's kind of done in a classic, well, an old school castle, creepy, gothic kind of looking thing. Well, what people consider to be gothic, dark and sinister these days, rather than proper gothic architecture with the gothic arches and stuff. And we've been told it's an asylum, and that's creepy because crazy people are scary, as we all know. Okay, so what is effective about this? Well, everything about this building is screaming, "Go away," at us. But we have to go inside. Okay, at this point it's curiosity that's driving the main character forward. Go back to what I said about curiosity in the previous video. Okay, he's an investigative reporter. He's a naturally curious person, and he's been given information that something very interesting is going on here. So even though everything about this place is screaming, "Go away," that's only making you more curious, hopefully, you and him, the character, and hopefully you as well, more curious. Why does it look like this? Okay? But at the same time, it is still screaming, "Go away," at us, but we're going to go inside anyway, so that creates tension. So, lesson 1 here is that if you have a chance to show people an exterior before they go inside, make it look like a place no one in their right mind would ever want to go into. Then make them go in. Okay, so I think it's after this is when we get the note that he reads. I'm not a fan of synopsis before the game starts. I think it should have just started with the intro. And reading a note, I don't know about that. I think it should have just been something that he's listening to as he drives up, giving you the synopsis and the information in the note, and then the game starts when you get out of the car. Okay? And really, I think they actually should have put in a bit more detail. This is one time I think they should have put in a bit more information. I'm not, just a little bit of the story about the note. How he got this information, a little bit more about that. It's a little bit bare bones. It gives you pertinent information, but that's all it gives you. You're taking away the mystery aspect. One of the best ways to do information in a mystery, if you haven't watched my episode about mystery, you should go back and watch it, but I'll recap slightly here, in that a mystery is 2 stories. It's a story that happened before, and then the story of uncovering information about that story. Okay, that is the actual mystery, is finding out stuff about the first story. So an effective way to write a mystery novel would be to write the whole first story that happened before, and then you write the mystery and you use information from the first story and seed it through, and those are your clues and stuff. But the effective way to do it is that you should always put in red herrings, which is a detective novel term for, what's the best way to put it? It's false information. You should always combine good clues, real information, with false information, so that the person going along with the investigator, as well as the investigator, doesn't know the reality. Right? So, to me, the note that you read at the beginning of this game, there's no red herrings involved. Okay? It's just a little bit of information. which, it maintains that whole idea of the mystery, but it isn't expanding on it enough. It's not giving you false information and innuendo and hearsay to go with accurate information. There's nothing to figure out. It's used to set up some more tension, because it tells you that there's terrible things happening inside of this place, but we have to go in. It does introduce a mystery element, that there's something happening, and a lot of people forget about that altogether, so it's good that they're using it to a degree here. It's just, I think they should have pushed it further. But it's important in this case, because as an investigative reporter, the mystery is why he's there in the first place, to uncover what's going on. Okay, it also reveals that the main character has a real serious dislike of the corporation that runs the asylum. Actually, I think that may be revealed just a bit later on, but that's not a serious spoiler or anything. Hopefully you've watched the playthrough or played the game yourself. And if not, again, it's not... that's the sort of information that should come early on, because it helps set up why he's more interested in this than any other case that he could be working on, or investigation, story, whatever. So the lesson here is give people a mystery and make it a creepy mystery, but also don't give away too much. And whatever you are giving away, surround it with false information in order to disguise what could be the true information whenever you can. So, next, the guy goes in, and the gate closes behind him, so now we're trapped inside. And there wasn't anybody there to close it, so now we're isolated from people, and there was a nice little creep out. It was a pretty good little segment there. And after that we have a nice long, although he shortened it in the video, but a good period of time walking around the outside. It was a good setup. It's nice and creepy. Further emphasizing the fact that this is not a place that should be gotten into, but we're going to find a way to get in. Okay? And there's military vehicles outside and no guards, so there's nobody outside at all, even though this is supposed to be a secure insane asylum. And why is the military there? Where are all the guards? Where is everybody? Okay, we haven't seen anything horrible, mutilated corpses or anything yet, thankfully. There's no sense necessarily that things have gone horribly wrong, but it is uneasy, because it doesn't really make sense. Going back to the previous videos, it is wrong. It is wrongness in a situation that seems somewhat plausible, if mysterious. Okay? So again, all of this serves to create that sense that we should not be here. We should leave. We should most definitely not, in any circumstance, go inside. But of course, we're going to go inside. And once you're inside, he goes up some scaffolding and gets in through a window. And immediately you see that something has happened here. That something is wrong, very, very wrong. And, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Noisy people outside again. Had to pause. So as I was saying, okay, we're finally inside, and the room's messed up. Something's really wrong. And as we go in through the window, the light bulb blows up. Nice little jump scare. And it's the first time the player is forced to start using the camera that they're carrying to use the night vision to see. And as you leave the room, again, even more emphasis that what's going on is just wrong. I think another effective tool to create some fear here would be for the window to slam shut behind them, perhaps barred, and they can't get it back open again. That might be a bit cliche, but again, we're creating a scenario where they are going further into someplace they shouldn't have gone to begin with, and it's trapping them. In order to prevent it from seeming too supernatural, basically, I would have something, when they go into the gate, have it to where they tripped an alarm that closed the gate, and then same thing in the room. Somebody else, perhaps, maybe have some hint as they go in that somebody else got that window open to get out, but then once they go in, they trip like an alarm that's been activated in the building, and that closes the window and locks it. So, keep them in doubt on whether anything supernatural is actually going on, but at the same time, trap them and freak them out by doing so, hopefully. So, as the player goes through the first few rooms, there's this enhanced sense of wrongness. Things are we're all fucked up. Then there's another little jump scare with a TV. I'm not a big fan. If you've watched my Art of the Jump Scare, it might be a little too much too quickly, but it's good for just kind of messing with the player and getting the heart beating a little bit faster at that point. Out in the corridor, we see that there's lots of stuff blocking up the halls and the doors, barricades. So what does this tell us? It tells us people were here, and they were trying to create defense against something. So that, again, this feeling of wrong. Something is really wrong here. Then, almost right away, though, we see tons of blood. Really, I think it's way too soon. Okay? There's a good scare where the bathroom door slams shut and you can hear somebody crying on the other side of the door. That's effective. You don't need all the blood. It doesn't really serve any purpose, because we already know something bad is happening. We just don't know what. So it's the unknown. Now we've seen all this blood before we get into any danger, so we know that there's something hurting people. As before, we didn't know. Maybe the military had rounded people up for some reason. There could be any number of possibilities. We don't really know what's going on yet, necessarily. But now you see this blood. People have been hurt. Killed, probably, with the amount of blood there is. So, really all it does is start this huge escalation of blood and gore. Which is something that this game seriously suffers from, is just a constant barrage of gore. Maybe the most blood should have been just a little trail of blood going from the vent in the bathroom, from the vent to the bathroom, to show that somebody that was injured came out of that vent and then went into the bathroom, and they're crying now. Then there's also a point where there's blood dripping from the ceiling. It's overkill. It's just right from the beginning. You're already have this barrage of gore, as I said. There's a good little bit where once you get up into this vent to go to the next area, you see a guy running out of the bathroom, then back inside, kind of freaking out. I think a hurt woman would actually be more effective as a scare there, and to be freaky. But I don't know whether they were trying deliberately to avoid cliches, but I don't think they had any women in the game at all. But either way, it is a pretty effective creep out. And not long after this, the player, in this case PewDiePie, gets out of the vent and goes into the next area and opens a door. And you get the first really solid jump scare, which is a body dropping down kind of from the ceiling and being right in the way, I believe. I'm trying to do this from memory. Not easy. It's been a long time since I wrote this. Damn, this time last year. Whew. And at this point, the gore I'll allow, because it's part of the story. Again, I don't necessarily have a problem with using gore at all, But when, it's just too much too soon, and when it's not really serving any purpose to the story, is when it bugs me the most. So, I mean, at this point, really, though, they've been doing a pretty good job. They've had a really good, solid build-up of tension before they get to this major jump scare, which is good. But, I mean, it's still just a jump scare. But the visuals, once you get over the jump, are pretty good. It's a headless corpse hanging by its legs like a trophy. It's more than just the gore here, which is nice. It's visceral on several levels. Taking someone's head is like it's taking their identity away. And the fact that the head isn't there means it was taken. And then, of course, the body's been strung up like a deer, and the head has been taken like a trophy. So you get in further into the room, and you're dealing with this, a guy who's still alive, but he's been spitted like a pig, with a spike up through him. And he's surrounded by heads sitting on shelves. It really is a trophy room. Okay, that's freaky. That's an effective use of gore. And you get some more creepy dialogue. And, of course, at this point, you're becoming more and more aware of time, because you realize that if this guy is still alive in this condition, he dies at the end of the dialogue, of course, but that means that whatever did this to him is still nearby. He could not have been in this condition very long and still been alive for you to find him. Okay, that's simple psychology. You present a really horrible scene, you make it as creepy and nasty and horrible as, fearful, create as much fear as you can, but then you push it even further by using elements of it to make sure they understand that the danger is still nearby. Okay? So you get them to feel panic. Something has been killing people, including armed soldiers, and it's nearby still. It can get us. Oh, fuck. Alright, and this is one of the reasons why I think that intro note, this little synopsis at the beginning of the game, is nothing but a mood killer. It's pointless, because right then and there, this information has told us that we cannot fight this thing. I'm not a fan of not being able to fight anything in a game. I think that the more basic freaks in this game should be possible to fight with them. Big and Nasty is my name for the tormentor, the antagonist that's going to be introduced here. And you can't fight him. That's fine. I wish you could be able to fight the other guys. That's more realistic. Just this idea that you cannot fight against anyone isn't very realistic, and that kind of kills it in some ways. But when it comes to the big fucker, as I've said, that's my name for him, Walker, I think is his name in the game, is able to go hand to hand and rip apart soldiers. We know we cannot fight this guy. We're just a reporter. We have no way to fight against this guy, so that tells us everything we need to know about dealing with him. All we can do is run away and hide from this guy. Okay? So that note was absolutely useless. All it did was give away more information. Okay, finally went away again. Noisy people next door. So where was I? Oh yeah, the soldier that's been spitted on the spike. So yeah, he basically just tells you everything that's in that intro note before the game starts, which made that completely pointless. Just telling you shit you don't need to know too early. And then right after that, Pewdie cut out I don't know how much stuff, but he gets right to where we're introduced to the main tormentor of the game, the big fucker, as I call him, Big and Nasty. And I'm sure the stuff that he cut out is good tension-building material. I don't know how long it took him before he gets grabbed, and, because Big and Nasty grabs you and tosses you out of a window. It's a really good scare. It's a jump out. You see the grossness of the character of Big and Nasty, big fucker. It's a good scare overall. And I think the lesson to take from that is that if you're going to use a jump scare, try to pack information into it that will scare people as much as possible, like with the headless body and the soldier on the spike still being alive. You know, I still don't think you should use jump scares very often, but when you do use them, again, it's all about managing information. So if you're going to use a jump scare, put something else with it to make it more than just a boo. So after that, we get a cutscene that's it's an introduction to the resident religious fanatic who thinks that the main character is part of some divine plan, which is one of those oh goody type of moments. And after that, there's some dead guards and background info. You know, it's effective for building up the creep factor again, the tension again, but again, I think there's too much gore. I think the gore would be more effective in this game if they would restrict it more to things like just the room full of heads and dead bodies and things and gore, and then you don't see much for a while after that. You know? But I guess the point is that this is not a haunted house with lots of spooky stuff. It's not a slow burn thriller. It's a horrible, fucked up place with at least one very dangerous, inhuman freak roaming around ripping people apart. Although the fact that the soldier says something about the variants means that there's more than, and says them, means there's more than one. So you're in the middle of a monster movie, basically. And it's going to be more about carnage than actual horror, unfortunately. But during the next part wherein he's exploring after the cutscene, you know, he's expecting something to happen. PewDiePie is expecting something to happen, and he freaks out because he kind of bumps into this plant that looks a bit odd. And I don't know if he jumped for a, for comedic effect or if it was a legitimate jump. It seemed to me that it was a legitimate thing. But, I mean, it's a good example of why building up tension and paranoia is important. You know, people will scare themselves more if you don't show them stuff. You know, all you have to do is keep nudging them now and again. You know, and if you're watching the playthrough along with this, if you don't, I suggest you actually go to the playthrough and watch it, or you can just follow the link to the post that I'm working off of here to do this video, because I have the playthrough video in the post, so you can watch it and read along at the same time. Because there's a point where he comes to this long, scary-ass hallway, and PewDiePie's look is priceless. And his reaction to it, his expression when he sees the hallway is like, oh no, I don't want to go in there. You know, and the thing is that there's nothing really indicating that something's bad is down the hall. You know, we do see a body sitting in a wheelchair, which is creepy, because I don't know why, but wheelchairs are inherently creepy for some reason, especially if they're old and cobwebby and in hallways or attics. I don't know why. It's just for some reason wheelchairs are creepy. And why is it scary? Why is this hallway scary? Because it's dark, it's creepy, it's, you can't see very well. And you have to go down that hallway. You have to go down this hallway past the body in the chair, which may not just be a body. And he is going to expose himself to whatever could be down there when he does so. He's become paranoid. He's having doubts about what he's got to do next, which creates fear. It makes him afraid even when there's no obvious threat. That's tension. That's good horror. Okay, long hallways where you can't quite see the end are creepy. Okay, when you can clearly see something that might be a threat but may not be, it creates paranoia. Like the body in the wheelchair. You don't know if the guy's dead or if he's just kind of slumped over. You don't know. You doubt. Okay? Again, doubt is your best friend in horror. If you make the player doubt their every action, their every movement, you've got them. You know, but hey, it's just a dead body, right? Wait. Did he just move? But he is alive, of course. It isn't just a body, and PewDiePie goes right by him without anything happening. He expects something will happen, but it doesn't, which is good. Okay, but then the next part he goes into this creepy TV room, because there's people in there that are alive, and they're just looking at static on the TV. And it's a bloody TV that's partially, it's been busted and it's bloody. That's effective use of blood, is just putting it someplace where it's a juxtaposition, a contrast with the white crackle of the static and the blood. That's a good contrast. And then you have the weird zombie-looking dudes just staring at it and talking weird shit. And there's one of them is just rocking and crying. Good creepy shit. They don't really react to the player. They're just creepy. Okay, and then you get the really good jump scare again with the guy in the wheelchair. You went past him before the first time without anything happening, but now you're going the other direction and he jumps on you, and you have to push him off away from you. Great jump scare. He says some weird shit. After you shake him off, he crawls away and curls into a fetal position. Okay, which is a sign of extreme distress. Okay, again, it's not just a jump for the sake of making people jump. They're messing with you on a number of levels, okay? One, they've made you feel like you're in danger, but you really weren't, but then you get rid of the guy, you push him away, and you discover that he wasn't really dangerous. He's actually incredibly distressed and, not well, because he crawls into this fetal position. Like I said, it's a sign of extreme distress. So it's not just a surprise for the sake of making you jump. It's pulling some strings. It's showing you some things. Okay, and then we get into the next area, Pewdie does, and we see another trail of blood going down the stairs. Again, this is kind of an effective use of gore, because we don't see where the gore goes to. It's leading into an area that we don't want to go in. We don't want to go down, because that's where it's leading, is downstairs, and we don't want to go downstairs. Nobody in horror, nobody ever really wants to go downstairs, okay? Especially not when there's a trail of blood going downstairs, because that means somebody was dragged down there who was bleeding. And if I remember correctly, there was actually somebody in a wheelchair or laying on the ground when you first see that part of the hallway that is not there now. Okay. And again, in some ways this is telling us information we don't really need to know, because that trail of blood goes downstairs, we're pretty much guaranteed we'll have to go down there. But we already knew we'd have to go through the whole place anyway, so, take it or leave it. And you go through other stuff, and at one point there's a freaky guy banging on a door down a hall, which is used to set up to teach a game mechanic, looking behind you. But then when you go back there's no one there, which is again setting up paranoia. He knows he has to go down that hallway where somebody was that was, threatening, but and everything is inside is screaming, "Don't go down there," but you have to. It's just those simple little things. A threatening figure that's disappeared, a long hallway you can't quite see to the end of, doors that could have things behind them. And it sets up the scenario for the player. Anything and everything could be behind those doors, or at the end of that hallway. you do things right. You don't have to constantly be threatening the player with a monster or a freak or whatever. They will scare themselves. You know, so the game carries on. He keeps playing. You have a voice behind a door that tells a couple of things. Then you get to the security room. Um, more gratuitous blood through this. I guess it's just to mess with the squeamish who find that stuff scary. But to me, it's just, again, you're going too far way too quickly. But all in all, I think this is about the best part of the game, is leading up to the security room. It's got the best tension, the use of jump scares. I think it's the scariest, most proper horror part of the game. You know, it's giving you hope that you can get out. Obviously, you know you're not going to get out this early in the game, but still, if you're allowing yourself to play the game and really get into it, you're hoping that you can get out of here now, like the main character will be. And you present them with this opportunity, and then you take it away from them because Father Nutjob fucks us over by killing the power. Okay, and then right towards the end of this playthrough video, Big and Nasty shows up and breaks through the fucking door, or starts breaking through the door, which forces Pewdie to hide. It's a threat, flimsy protection, because he could rip that locker open and open it and see no problem. And we know that we would check the lockers. This Big and Nasty guy pretty much knows that there was somebody in the security room. He's busted through the damn door, a security door. He knows somebody was in there pretty much. The only place they could have gone is in the locker. We're fucked. He's going to check the locker, we're dead. But, for whatever reason, and it is not really very good storytelling, but, it's a game, still. Somebody running away down the hallway that gets his attention and draws him away would have been more effective than just having him leave for no apparent reason, in my opinion. But, it's a pretty freaky situation in the game. It's a pretty good setup. And, actually PewDiePie makes it even worse because he accidentally leaves the locker while the big guy is standing right in front of him with his back to him, and then manages to go right back into the lockers and hide again, which is real smooth. So a recap on the major lessons for horror right here is, the setting is very important. If you get the look and the feel of it right, half your battle is over. Right from the start, a creepy setting will help you tremendously just by, dark hallways and creepy, doorways that could have anything behind them, all that good shit. Make them paranoid you've won the war. So yeah, you get the setting right, and you're halfway, the battle is half over. You get the psychology right, you've won the battle. Because really people will scare them worse than anything that you can do to scare them. And in many ways, they'll scare themselves in deeper ways than what you do surface-wise by showing them stuff. That's really, to me, is great horror, is you give them the atmosphere, the right atmosphere, and then you plant just enough seeds for their imagination to kick in and do the scaring for you. You use your big scares with the right frequency, which is not often, just to remind them that they are in danger. It's not a straw man threat that's not real. It's a real threat that they're running away from and that they're in danger from, but you don't use it constantly. Running away from Big Fucker is scary because he's a threat, but the fear, the horror, comes from when you don't know where anyone is at all, where he could be or anybody else. That's horror. Okay. And this one is going to be kind of a long one because in order to get my 13, I did 4 good-sized posts on Outlast, so I'm combining 2 into each of these videos, so this will be kind of long. I'm sorry about that if you don't really want to watch long videos, but I wanted to hit that number 13 just for effect, so that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the second post that I wrote about this, continuing with PewDiePie's second playthrough. And again, this video opens up with the ending of the first one, with Pewdie pulling his "oh fuck, I'm dead, oh no I'm not" move with going out of the locker, then getting back inside of it. And it seems like it's a pretty good moment even here, because it seems like he's about to leave, then he turns around and starts opening up the other lockers. Now, I don't know if it's programmed so that I don't know if you can only hide in one of them, or if he's always going to pick the one that you don't hide in, or if you pick the wrong one, you'll be killed. I don't know how that works in the game. But again, it's a pretty good example of the give it, then take it away principle, which is you give them relief, and then you take that away from them, and then give it back to them. You make them, usually pretty effective in horror. It's about hope and relief. It's a great emotion to fuck with because you make them think that they're going to be okay, and then, cause that clinch moment of it's actually really good if you can stretch that out. Not too long, but stretch it out enough to make them, let that dread of the inevitable build, and then let them relax. That would have been a good moment for somebody to run past the door and get Big and Nasty's attention and draw him away. And I feel like they didn't take advantage of the situation because it happens too fast, I think. If it had been dragged out a bit longer, I think it would have been a lot more effective in the game. But there's a good bit where he stands in the door for quite a while. That could have been stretched out a bit more. And if they would have done that and then had him turn around and seem to look right at you, ooh, that would have been a very good moment, but they didn't do it. All in all, that part of the game with this in the security room, I think it's a good bit, but I think the timing's a bit off. And that's easy for me to say looking at the finished product. I know it's a lot harder when you're making the game. I'm just using this as an example. It's an analysis. It's just, the point is that sometimes dragging things out a little while can be useful in horror. And now, of course, in the game, Pewdie and the main character are going to have to go into one of the places you never want to go anytime, any way, anyhow, in any kind of a scary scenario, is into the basement. But why is that? What is it about basements? Well, what is it about basements that makes them scary? Obviously that depends on the basement. A basement with a rec room in it isn't going to be as scary as one full of basement-type stuff like water heater and pipes and things. But I think a lot of it is that we don't like being surrounded. Because usually basements only have 1 or 2 ways in and out, and you're surrounded by earth, you're trapped in a basement. If you're up on a ground floor or even on a second floor, usually you can get out through windows or doors. There's multiple entrances and accesses. You're not as trapped. Whereas a basement, there might only be one way in and out of a basement. So it's more claustrophobic because of that, subtly, but still claustrophobic. Because you're underground. It enhances that feeling of separation from the world and the safety it provides. It's just like when you go up to the mountain. It's just an even more intimate version of that. You know, and then of course there's the environment itself in a basement. You have exposed plumbing and air conditioning stuff. There's wet smells, odd sounds coming from pipes and ducts, you know. And then, I mean, obviously in a game or a movie or something, you personally won't experience this, they probably wouldn't even think of it for characters. But in your real life, you might experience this, and that I'm interested in ghosts. I do actually believe in ghosts, the perseverance of energy that could possibly contain personality after death is something an notion that interests me. So I do watch some shows like Ghost Hunters occasionally, not so much anymore, but there is this real phenomena called a fear cage, and it's based around electromagnetic fields that come off of electronics and things like power cables and ductwork and things, and high EM fields, electromagnetic fields, can cause you to experience paranoia, anxiety, and even physical symptoms. And basements, because they tend to have a lot of exposed wiring and, you know, power boxes and ductwork and things, can create these fear cages where it makes you freak out. And, you know, it's a really common phenomena that the ghost hunting community finds, and it's often responsible for why people tend to feel weird in basements, because of the high electromagnetic fields. And that's where something important comes in for horror, which is association. I talked about this to varying degrees in some of the other videos, which is we don't like hospitals. People tend to not like hospitals because of all the things we associate hospitals with. For the same reason, most people, or a lot of people, find basements to be kind of freaky. So all basements are freaky by association. Okay? So that's why things like basements and hospitals and stuff tend to show up so much in horror, is because of what people associate those things with. And because basements tend to be freaky, you put it in a movie and people are going to associate their freaky, any feelings they have for their own basements that they've used in their lifetime, they're going to associate with the basement in the movie, or the game, or the book. You know, smells. A smell can be the most powerful sense for triggering memories because it creates very powerful associations. So, you know, and people do that with everything in life. Life is basically just a build-up, a collection of experiences that you have as you get older, and then you associate things with your experiences. Okay? So again, because a lot of people find their own basements to be kind of creepy, they associate that feeling with all basements, which makes all basements creepy. Because they're basements. And really, in this case, because it's been endlessly used in horror movies, it's actually kind of reinforced it rather than lessened it when it comes to basements, especially. And even hospitals and stuff. That's why they're still a good place to use in horror fiction. I just, if you would like to get away from cliches, then you might want to do something else. And at this point, I am going to address something I mentioned right towards the start of this, which is the randomly laying around note or file, which happens mostly in games. I know it's part of finding out clues and stuff, but I really think that should come through gameplay and dialogue and revelations within the game, not just randomly laying around things that you read. I don't get that. It bugs the fuck out of me. You might disagree, but that's how I feel about it. I really don't like it. I'm not saying you can't do it at all. It's acceptable if you find things in odd places sometimes. And you can find, like, diaries and like pages out of a diary, especially if there's like a ghost that's intentionally putting them there for you. But in the case of something like Outlast, nobody's helping you. You know, or the ghost isn't. There isn't a ghost that's trying to string you along with the mystery. There's no explanation for it at all. There's just all this randomly laying around notes and files and stuff that have just enough information. Maybe if they were longer, and like I said at the beginning of this video, where about the red herrings, you don't just give the information that you want the people to have, you give lots of other information so they're not sure what's important and what's not important. You know, what I think Outlast really does wrong is just randomly leaving around pages from files and whole files and stuff, and then you only have one thing you can read. You know, if it's supposed to be a file full of stuff, then give them a whole file full of stuff to read through. Or leave it to dialogue and things that are found out through play, rather than reading shit. I'm not a fan of that. You know, it just turns me off, I guess. And of course, after that, we have another horror game classic or cliche, which is the "Oh no" puzzle. Which is that you have to accomplish some sort of task, like turning on generators in this case, down in the basement, to get the main power back on, while someone or something dangerous is nearby. Okay. And this one, I actually will say that they did it kind of well here, in that sometimes in these puzzles, nearly always when you accomplish part of your goal, the baddie or baddies will show up for no apparent reason just as you're starting to complete the puzzle. And in this case, they do actually kind of get around that by having the generators make noise as you start them up, which would draw attention. So that, I think, is something they did that was good. But they kind of fuck it up in a way, because maybe it was just the setting he was on. I would imagine that's part of it. But it seems like the enemy guys, the bad guys, just give up too quickly a lot of the time. You know, obviously you don't want them to be too thorough, then it'd be impossible to play. But when all they do is just open a locker, just kind of glance around a little bit and then leave, no, you know, when there's still your locker closed or something, you know, to me that's not enough of that, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh my god, 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 I'm gonna fucking die. You know, not enough of that. Leave the lockers alone and search the rest of the room. You know, just having them open one locker and leave your locker alone, it's too obvious what's happening there. It's a game mechanic taking hold. Don't, you know, if you're hiding in a locker, have them ignore the lockers entirely and search the rest of the room thoroughly. You know, to a degree. You know, maybe that's just my opinion. I don't know. But, I mean, they do kind of make up for that, because there's the one baddie guy is kind of hunting around one of the main rooms really doggedly, which forces you to maneuver around very carefully to stay out of where he can see you, which is pretty intense. It's pretty good. But again, intense is not fear. You know, it's not really scary, it's just threatening. And, you know, it's a game. But in ways, if you're wanting to play a horror game, are you really wanting to be scared by the game? Or are you just wanting to run away and hide? Are you wanting an adrenaline rush? Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's too straightforward. You know, all it really is you're in a dark place with someone wandering around that'll kill you if they catch you. You know, it's more about rush than fear at that point. I'm going to have to wrap this up. I'm running out of space on my C drive to record. Okay. That's really, I'm not a fan of the survival horror genre in a lot of ways because of that, because it really, there's points of good fear involved, but then it always seems to degenerate into just a series of games of cat and mouse. Okay? You can't defend yourself for some reason. You know, even when there's shit lying around all over the place that you can use as a club. I mean, in this case, down in the basement, the guy that's following you is not big and nasty that seems invulnerable. It's just one of the freaks that's more or less just a regular guy. You should be able to beat the fuck out of him if you needed to. You know, it's supposed to make it more threatening, but it isn't very realistic. And if you kill the realism in ways like that, you also kill the fear. Because then, like I said, it turns it into a game of cat and mouse. It's not very scary. You know? And really, once you've been chased around by big and nasty, it's kind of hard to feel the same kind of panic towards the smaller dudes. So they're actually starting big and going down. And it gets to be just the same old until you have to deal with what's called the wall rider later in the game. And even then, it's still the same shit. It's just that the wall rider thing is more threatening because it's faster, harder to see, and it gets through obstacles quicker. You know, that's the problem. There's nothing to analyze when it comes to the parts where you just have to avoid the baddies and hide, because it's obvious. There's nothing scary about it. It's just cat and mouse, you know? So, yeah, I mean, they could have done better, I think. But maybe that's just me. So, I mean, the game, at this point, he manages to get the lights back on. There's some good bits that are in there that can kind of creep you out. Which would be more effective if there wasn't dead bodies and gore all over the place, as it was, everywhere anyway. That's a problem with Outlast, is that it did not do very well with maintaining its atmosphere. I mean, it gets too gory too quickly, and then it just does too much too soon and kills the atmosphere. It's only about an hour into the game, and pretty much everybody playing will be immune to the gore by then, because there's just been tons of it. And at the end of this particular playthrough video, there's a pretty good cutscene. It's a nice one. It messes with you a little bit, gives you the hope of escape, but has it snatched away from you. There's some more creepy talk and dialogue, and then it sets up the wall rider, because you watch on a security camera and shows you that there is actually something even worse than big and nasty inside this place. Although it does set up a bit of a plot hole, but it's not really important. And at this point was when I kind of decided that Pewdie actually did the right thing in ignoring all the files and stuff, because that makes it even better. Because the story isn't very good, I have to say. It's not a very well written story, so the fact that he ignores the story and just kind of plays the game without reading the notes and stuff actually makes it work better, I think. But again, that could just be my opinion. But I'm just about out of video space here, so I'm going to have to wrap this up very quickly. Do my usual YouTube stuff rapidly. Give me that upvote if you want to. It's appreciated. Comments, questions, other topics you'd like me to cover, appreciated. Don't be negative. Don't troll, or I will troll back. Yeah, I can be good at it, and better than you, most likely. Because I don't like you trolls. It's at your own risk if you try to troll me. Okay, come by and visit my website, acidbathproductions.biz. It's a forum. We can have some chit-chat there. Subscribe if you haven't yet, so you can be up to date when I put new videos up. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.